today's story, I thought I would read another of the fairy tales in Scots. Do you remember A Wee Book of Fairy Tales? And there are two stories in here that we have read in Primary 5B already. We've read The Three Wee Pigs and we've read Cinderella. And Primary 5T, you might remember our performance of Cinderella during Scots Week. Today we're going to read the story of Rumplestiltskin. And as I say, it's going to be read in Scots. I wonder if you know the story of Rumplestiltskin in English. Let's see if you recognise it. Lang, lang ago, in the days of lang syne, there was a poor miller, and this miller had a bonny, bonny dochter. It's like a daughter. Yin day, the miller is somebody who turns corn into flour. Yin day, the miller had to go to the palace to sell the king some corn. He wanted to make himself look good in front of the king. So he said, "See my dochter. She's bonny and she's braw, but better than that, she can spin gold out of straw." The king was a greedy man, and his lugs waggled when he heard this. "Weel, my mannie," he said, "send her here the morn. We'll see if her gold's better than your corn." The next day the miller's dochter came to the palace. The king took her into a room full of straw and gave her a spinning wheel and a reel and said to her, "Now sit ye down, lass, and birl the wheel." Birl means spin. Normally you would spin thread or you would spin wool to turn it into a thread, but spinning corn is a bit unusual. "And spin this straw onto the reel, and if by the morrow it's no a gold thread, I'm sorry to say I'll chap off your head." So he wanted her to spin the corn into gold thread, and if she didn't manage to do it, he was going to chop off her head. Then he barred the door, locked her in, and left the lassie to it. Well, the miller's dochter just grat and grat, greeted and greeted, cried and cried, for she'd nae idea who to spin straw into gold. But afore lang, the door opened and a wee man came in. He was the maist hackett wee man, remember hackett? Ugly, she had ever seen. And he said to her, "Aye, bonny lass, here's a fine meeting, but tell me this, what way are you greeting? The king thinks that I can make gold out of straw, but I canna do it. It's nae use at all." "I can do that," the wee man said. "Dinna ye bubble, but what will ye gie me to pay for my trouble?" So he's saying, "I can do it, but what will you give me to pay for my trouble?" The lassie took the necklace frae round her neck and handed it o'er. The wee man he put it in his pouch, sat down at the wheel and birled it 3 times, brr, brr, brr. And the reel was full of gold. He put on another reel, brr, brr, brr. And that reel was footy. All nicht the wee man birled the wheel, and in the morning when he junk it awa, the straw was turned to gold. The king was fair beside himself with joy, but the sight of all that glistering gold just made him greedier. He took the miller's dochter to a bigger room with even mair straw in it, and he said, "Now sit ye down, lass, and birl a wheel, and spin this straw into the reel, and if by the morrow it's not all gold thread, you'll leave me nae choice but to chap off your head." The lassie was just sitting down for another good greet when the door opened and in louped the wee man. "The way thon king treats you," he said, "it's a crime. Now, what'll you gie me if I help you this time?" The lassie gied the wee man the ring off her finger, and he put it in his pouch and sat at the wheel, and brr, 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 he began to spin, and by the morn's morn, he had spun all the straw into bonny glistering gold. When the king saw this, he ran about the palace like a dog with 2 tails. But he was still greedy for mair gold, so he put the miller's dochter in a huge muckle room where she couldn't see the windies for straw, And he said, "Now sit ye down, lass, and birl the wheel, and spin this straw onto the reel. Turn it into gold, or I'll tak your life. But if ye can do it, I'll mak ye my wife." For the king was thinking to himself, "Her father may be a poor stoury miller, but she'll mak me richer than a prince that was siller." Although the miller is poor, and that's the prince, her father, if he marries her, he's thinking, because he thinks can spin straw into gold, she will make him richer than a princess who's got silver. After he'd gone, in came the wee mannie and said, "Haw, new lass, it's a queen you're to be. If I spin this straw this time, what will you gie?" But the miller's daughter had naething left to gie him. So the wee man said, "Tell you what then, I'll mak ye a deal. If I spin this straw into gold at the wheel, and you become queen, the first bairn ye hae, I'll take for my ain. How will that do?" The lassie agreed, for she didn't ken what else to do, and anyway, she thought, I'll just show you there's Rumplestiltskin at the spinning wheel. Anyway, she thought, what's the chance of me being a queen? There's mere chance of the sky turning green. So Rumpelstiltskin has promised to help her, but only, because she's got nothing left to give him, only if when she does become queen and has a baby, that she gives him the baby, which would be the prince. In the morning, the king found the hale room full of gold, and he kept his promise and married the miller's daughter, and didna threaten to chap off her head ever again. A year passed, and the queen had a bonny bairn, and she was awfully happy, and soon forgot all about the hackett wee mannie. But one day he came jinking into her room and said, "Ha, my braw queenie, michty look at you. I've come for my bairn. I'll just tak him noo." The queen was at her wit's end, and tell't the wee man he could he onything else he wanted, all the riches of the kingdom, if he would let her keep the bairn. But the mannie said, "No, no, queen, we'd a deal worked out. It's no my fault if it doesn't suit. Silver and gold mean naething to me. Your bonny wee bairn is what you must gie." The queen grat and wouldn't gie him her bairn, till at last he took pity on her. "Ah, recht, queen, to save your wine, I'll gie you 3 days to guess my name. If you haven't got it by the end of that time, he had your chance, and the bairn will be mine." The queen sat up the whole nicht thinking all the names she could, and she sent a servant far and wide to ask for any other names she didn't ken. And on the first day when the wee mannie came, she tried out names like Torquil, Dermot and Farquhar, and when none of them was recht, she tried Willie, Geordie and Shug. But to each name the wee man gied a wee loup and said, "No, queenie, sorry, no, hen. That's no my name. Try again." On the second day, she tried out more unusual names like Clarty Breeks, Loppy Lugs, Neatpeed and Julie Fingers. But the wee man just gied a wee loup and said, "No, queenie, no, sorry, hen. That's no my name. Try again." On the third day, the servant she had sent awa came back to the queen with an odd tale. "A lang journey I hae ta'en, and I didna hear a single new name. But deep in the woods Lichnicht I spied a wee house wi' a fire outside. A wee man danced round the fire, and he sang as he danced, and he didna tire. Oh, what a clever loon I hae been, the morrow I'll hae a bairn fae the queen, for naebody kens to tell the dame that Rumpelstiltskin is my name. Aye, naebody kens to tell the dame that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." So when the wee man came in to see the queen a while later, she tried out a few other names first, such as Horace, Marmaduke and Jock. But to all these the wee man cried, "No, queenie, no, sorry, hen. That's no my name. Try again." "Well then," said the queen, "I'm done in, unless your name is Rumpelstiltskin." At this the wee man flew into a fury. Somebody's telt you, he roared, and stamped his left foot that hard it went straight through the flare. and then he pulled his other foot that hard he tore himself in twa, and that was the end of the wee man. And the king and the queen and their bairn lived happily ever after in their muckle braw palace. And that was the story of Rumpelstiltskin. We've got some other ones in this book which we might read another day. We've got Snawwicht, The Billy Goat's Gruff, and Wee Red Riding Hood for another time. Bye.